A cold wind pushed down Cleveland's Seymour Avenue long before anyone knew the name Ariel Castro. Streetlights flickered over sagging porches, cracked sidewalks, and rows of houses that stood too close together, their windows catching the glow of passing cars. On some nights, it felt like the whole neighborhood held its breath. Dogs barked at nothing. Parents called their kids inside early, and when a girl didn't make it home, people whispered about the same stretch of blocks, as if something there swallowed the missing before anyone ever found the words to warn one another. The first disappearance that shook the neighborhood happened on a warm summer afternoon when 14-year-old Angela Blackwell walked to a corner store for candy and never returned. It was the kind of errand neighborhood kids made without thinking, a short walk from her house to the shop at the end of the street. But when she didn't come back, when her mother checked the store and found no sign of her, panic spread faster than police cars could arrive. Neighbors fanned out and called her name across alleys and backyards, but the search ended the same way every other one would end in those years, empty-handed. A few months later, another girl, 16-year-old Michelle Lewis, vanished after leaving a friend's house 3 blocks from where Angela disappeared. She walked out just after sunset, promising to be home by dark, but the trail dropped off instantly. Her purse was found days later in a dumpster behind an abandoned house. Police canvassed the neighborhood, but without evidence or witnesses, the case stalled. Families started telling their daughters to stay off the streets alone. Doors that had stayed unlocked for decades started getting bolted early. In 1995, things escalated when a young woman named Sonia Williams disappeared on her way to her job at a nearby nursing home. She was 21, responsible, the kind of person who showed up early and stayed late. When she didn't arrive, her supervisor called her family. Her car was found parked crooked along a curb with the keys still inside. That detail rattled everyone. The idea she wasn't just missing, but taken in the middle of something ordinary. Sonia's family held vigils, put up flyers, and begged for information, but like the girls before her, she never turned up. Some residents believed the disappearances were connected. They pointed to the narrow grid of streets, the abandoned houses nobody touched, and the way these cases clustered in the same square mile. Rumors spread about a man in a van, a stranger offering rides, or someone pretending to need help. Others said it couldn't be one person. They thought it was the neighborhood itself, the boarded-up houses, the lack of streetlights, the way overlooked places attracted people who knew they could get away with things in the dark. What no one guessed was that the real danger lived closer than anyone imagined, hiding in plain sight, while the neighborhood learned to accept the uneasiness as normal. By the late 90s, police had a stack of missing person reports tied to the same area. Some detectives suspected drugs, runaways, or voluntary disappearances. In a neighborhood struggling with poverty, violence, and unstable housing, that explanation made investigations easier to close on paper. But families insisted these girls didn't run. They didn't leave without saying goodbye. They were pulled out of their lives by someone who knew the streets better than patrol cars ever could. In 1999, a 17-year-old named Jasmine Thomas vanished after heading to a friend's birthday party 1 street over. She was seen walking toward the house, but never made it inside. Her father spent weeks going door to door, knocking on every home along the route, including one on Seymour Avenue where he said the man answering the door seemed nervous and eager to get rid of him. Police followed up, but without probable cause or evidence, the visit ended quickly. Years later, people would look back at that moment and shake their heads at how close he had come to the truth without realizing it. By the time the early 2000s arrived, the pattern was undeniable. Young women and teenage girls disappeared from the same few blocks. Some names faded from memory as families moved away or lost hope. Others kept pushing, calling news stations, sending letters to detectives, and organizing community meetings even when attendance dwindled. What hurt the neighborhood most wasn't the silence from the missing, but the feeling that their disappearances barely registered outside their zip code. When victims came from struggling neighborhoods, resources were thin, leads were weak, and cases slid to the bottom of piles. Still, there were warnings in those years, strange reports that never made the news. A woman said she was grabbed near a bus stop, but escaped when someone opened a door across the street and startled the attacker. Another woman claimed a man tried to lure her into his car, promising a ride home, but she sprinted away. Police documented some of these incidents and dismissed others, but the pattern was there in the shadows long before anyone could name it. Something dangerous hunted the same streets, watching the same corners, learning how to move without being noticed. Then, in 2002, when a young single mother named Michelle Knight went missing, the neighborhood barely noticed. Her family situation was complicated, and police initially believed she left on her own. Her case drew little attention, even as her disappearance fit the same pattern. Later that year, another girl disappeared, 16-year-old Amanda Berry, taken the day before her 17th birthday. Her mother never gave up, following every tip and calling every number that promised answers. When she received a phone call years later from someone claiming to have seen Amanda, she clung to the hope until the day she died. In 2004, 14-year-old Gina DeJesus vanished while walking home from school. She was friends with Castro's daughter, a detail that should have sparked urgency but didn't. Police searched alleyways, questioned neighbors, and interviewed classmates. Flyers went up across the city. Still, no one found her. The neighborhood's fear peaked, but the sense of helplessness was stronger. People felt like something was happening right under their noses, but without evidence, all they had were locked doors and worried prayers. When the truth finally broke open in 2013, when Amanda Berry escaped from Ariel Castro's home and called 911, the world reacted with shock. 3 women, Amanda, Gina, and Michelle, had been held captive for years inside a house everyone passed by without a second thought. The horror inside those walls became global news, but for people who had lived in that neighborhood long before Castro's name appeared on television screens, the revelation did something else. It connected the fear they had carried for decades. It made the earlier disappearances feel sharper, more real, and more painful. These girls before Castro had vanished along the same streets where he hunted. And while no evidence ever linked him to those earlier cases, the neighborhood could not forget how many warnings came before the world finally listened. Families of the women missing from the 90s still hold on to hope or remembrance, depending on how many years have passed. Their stories never gained the attention Castro's crimes did, but their pain shaped the neighborhood long before his house was torn down. The community learned the hard way that danger rarely appears as a monster at first glance. Sometimes it lives on the same block. Sometimes it answers the door with a polite smile when a desperate father comes looking for his daughter. And sometimes it hides in the years before anyone realizes a predator was walking among them. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.